Hi. So, it's been a little bit since I was on here. Let me take another sip of my tea. I continually have something going on in my throat. So when I think about doing a video, I have to think, am I going to be able to talk, or am I going to sound like somebody rubbing rocks together? Anyway, I want to talk about something that may be kind of controversial. I found out that people have strong opinions about some things and they don't mind telling you about it. So, I have some strong opinions, so I'm going to tell you about my strong opinion. And it's about 401ks and the way the corporate world has been going. I cashed my 401k out as soon as I was 59 and a half because of the way I feel about them. And for a little bit of background, let me explain this to you and see what you think. Now, years ago, companies gave pensions. And when you worked for a company for a long time, you had loyalty to the company because you knew at the end of the 30, 40 years, you were going to get a pension. And it was usually going to be a good pension. You were paid well, you were treated well, all these things. And then here come the 80s. And around 1980, I'm not sure the exact date, the pensions were kind of phased out, and a new thing came in called the 401k. It was part of some law that somebody thought was a good idea. But what it basically did was let the company put the retirement off on the employee. So the employer didn't have to provide a pension any longer. They said it was to protect the individual, but it's actually to protect the company. Because at that point, you were taking your money, whatever percentage of it was, and you were putting it into this thing called a 401k. Well, what a lot of people don't realize, or maybe they do, is that the 401k actually props that company up in a couple of different ways. Number one, it gives money back to the company so that they can do business. And it also gives them more profit because they didn't have to fund the pension themselves. Plus, they didn't have to fund any money for anyone who has already left the company. All that money is back in their pocket. Now, before that, when they were doing the pensions, any profits they made, they had to put it back into the company because they were funding these pensions. And they also had to put it into these pension plans. Well, all that's gone, so now they have all the profits for themselves, okay? So once they found out that this is going to be a big money-making thing for them, the next thing that happened is the CEOs and the stakeholders, management, board members, consultants, all these people started getting huge bonuses and raises because they had more net profits coming in because they weren't paying anything to you, okay? And meanwhile, you're putting your money in this 401k because it's building for your retirement. And you can't touch it, right? If you leave the company, you can roll it over into a different one. This was the one of the things that they said was good, is that if you left that company, you still had your money. You just had to roll it over into another 401k at your new company. But you couldn't have your money yet. You weren't allowed to take it out yet, or you get a huge penalty. Fees, penalties, all that stuff. And then, when the profits started going up, like I said, they were giving it to the CEOs and all the net profits. You weren't getting the net profits from this. Even though you were investing back into the company through your 401k, that company and all the other companies doing the exact same thing, they were giving the profits to the CEOs, the managers, the board members, the consultants. Those were the people that were getting the big profits. Fast forward to today, those people are making 10 to 100 times more than the average worker. Now, think about that. Over time, had the pay went up in conjunction with the profits, you wouldn't be making $20 an hour now working at McDonald's or whatever company that you're working at. You'd be making closer to what the CEO is making. All the pay would go up equally. Of course, the CEOs nowadays wouldn't be making that either, what they're making now. But that's just a side note. So anyway, as time goes on, these companies decide, oh man, we are doing so well, this is great. And they tell all the employees, this is fantastic, we're making all kinds of money. And next year, our goals are going to be to make more money. So we're going to give you some higher goals for next year and see if you can do it, you know. And meanwhile, you're working more hours because you're trying to boost the company's profits with promises that they're going to make more money, and you'll get a raise. But the thing is that your raise doesn't equal the big raise that the CEO gets, right? And then as time goes on, they decide to change the benefits plan, right? We're going to go with something that's a little better, okay? So they dumped one benefits plan where your insurance was pretty decent to another benefits plan. The price may have went down a tiny bit, just a tiny bit, but then the benefits weren't as good, or the benefits looked really good, but the cost of it went way up. It's kind of they picked the least of the worst choices to throw at you, okay? And then as time goes on even more, what happens next is they say, oh, we're going to change another thing in your benefits. Instead of, having sick pay and vacation time and holidays, we're going to just lump it all into one and give you another week or another 2 weeks or whatever it is. And if you add it all up and break it all down, you're the one that loses, because if you have to call in sick, it comes off your PTO. They call it PTO nowadays. And so, you get a max 4 weeks a year, and you get sick or you're in the hospital, you're out of luck, right? Your 4 weeks is up, you're done. If you take any more time than that off, you can be fired, or you don't get paid for it. Meanwhile, the CEOs and the managers and all those people, they get more pay, they get more time off, they get shares in the company, all these great things going on for them. They get bonuses and all this stuff, okay? Are you with me? You're still putting money into the 401k all this time. You're still putting money into that 401k, and it's still propping up the company. So as time goes by, they make a few more changes. Now, what's happening is people are getting kind of disgusted with this, so they quit. And they go to work for another company for more money. Because what's happened in the meantime, another benefit they forgot to tell you about, was that instead of getting a merit raise and a cost of living raise, these are going to be lumped into one thing. And they don't tell you about this until it happens. For the company I worked for, I think it happened around 2010, 2012, somewhere around in there. And instead of getting those things, we were suddenly told we were only going to get one. And that's pretty much all the companies have done it across the nation. They've all done it the same way, maybe staggered it a year or two here, but they seem to all do the same thing, no matter where you go. Okay, so instead of getting a cost of living raise, which most places maxed it out at 3, 4, 5% back then, now it's it's even less than that now, and then merit raises based on what you did personally, they lump it all together, and you only get one raise if you get a raise. Now, the last time I witnessed this insanity, it's been years ago. We started getting these meetings where they were telling us how they were going to be doing these raises. And it wasn't going to be based on merit, and it wasn't going to be based on cost of living anymore. It was going to be based on our performance. And it wasn't going to be based on my raise wasn't going to be based on my performance or the company's performance as a whole. It was going to be based on surveys. And let me tell you, this is the reason I do not do surveys, period. Unless someone has went so far and above that I just have to say something, or so crappy. But then again, let me explain why. Because we were in a location, a big collection of offices, right? Lots of different businesses in this big complex, and the signage out front was not very good. It was just the numbers on the street, and then a few little small things on this column where it told all the names of the businesses in there. And then you had to drive around. There's a bunch of different parking areas. You had to walk through these little winding walkways. You know, it looked good from the outside. It was all decorated and nice, landscaping and all that. But it was hard to find any particular office. So we had people complaining continuously. Now, this has been going on for years, so it was nothing new to us. But it was in the survey that people were complaining because our office was hard to find. And so that went against us, our rating, our metrics, or whatever you want to call them. So that affected us, believe it or not. And then another thing that would affect us is that I'm working in a completely different area than someone working way over here in this area. And they had some kind of problem with that area, and yet it affects my raise over here. So that's kind of just an example of how things have changed over the years. They don't, it's a corporate thing. They don't care about you as an individual anymore, honestly. Okay? So people are getting disgusted with all this, and they start quitting. And then there comes the thing about, we need to all work together as a team. You know, it's hard to find good help. That BS starts coming up. So you take on more work, you work some overtime. Yay, you got overtime. You're making a little bit more money. You didn't get the good raise, so you can make some more money doing overtime, right? Well, great. You got extra work. You're thinking they're going to hire someone, but 6-8 months down the road, they haven't hired anybody. Oh, we can't find any good people. Yet the applications are stacking up. You hear people all over the street. I've been looking for a job. I applied for this one, and nobody called me. So the thing is they never meant to hire anyone. They meant to dump that work off on you. And as time goes by, you kind of absorb it, and it just becomes the norm. And when they do hire new people after like the third person has left, then they realize that the norm is going to be a much, much faster pace than it was before. So now the work pace is picked up, and now the company's making even more money because they're not having to pay as many people to do the work. And they don't really care that the work has gotten sloppy, and there's a lot of corners cut and all that kind of thing. And if something happens, something bad happens, somebody gets hurt, or something gets messed up, then of course it's your fault. You should have been doing it right to start with. Now, I worked in healthcare where mistakes can cost lives. And of course, when something happened, generally somebody got fired, but it wasn't the people that put in those policies. It was the people that were running their asses off trying to do what they were being told to do, and they made a mistake. And it's going to happen. Let me tell you, it will happen, okay? So anyway, I'm on a sidetrack there. So anyway, so time goes on, and your 401k is building, right? And then some of these new things start coming in. Have you heard the word REIT, R-E-I-T? Well, that's this entity like Blackstone and some other ones. And they are investing in rentals. Homes, rentals, they had the big market crash, and then the banks owned the homes, and they had to sell them to somebody. So these big entities started up called REITs. And so your 401k money started investing into these REITs too. And then your rent started going up, but your pay's still about the same, right? And so everybody's complaining that they can't find a place to rent because the rent's too expensive. Well, if you turn it around and think about it, if you go look in your 401k, see where your money is invested. And I guarantee you, you're in BlackRock, you're in Blackstone, you're in one of the companies that they own, and you're paying for them to raise your rent if you rent. Same thing for mortgage companies. You probably invested in some mortgage company or some bank that has raised the rates and they blame the Fed, okay? It's all a scam, in my opinion, all right? And then, the insurance industry is the same deal. So finally, they have found that they really need to make more profits because the CEO isn't getting a big enough bonus. He's going to bounce over to some other company. So they start laying people off. Now, these are people that are actually doing the work, that are producing the product, the service, that's actually making them the money, right? Sorry. But they know they've done this before in a nefarious way, and everything worked out. So they figure, it'll work out. So they lay a whole bunch of people off, usually people that have been there a long time, that thought they needed to be loyal, that made more money. They laid those people off, and it's a big boon to their profits. And then, because at the end of the year, they have to put out this big statement saying how much money they made and do all their bonuses and all that stuff. And then after the first of the year, they hire some more people to fill in the gaps. And they hire as few people as possible, and they're obviously going to hire them at the bottom. They're going to hire them at the least amount of pay possible. And a lot of new people coming in don't know what they should be getting paid, and so they take that pay. And then someone coming from another company, coming in that was doing the same thing, they giving them a little bit more, but they're not really giving them a decent raise, right? They make you promises, we'll give you a raise. The what is it? The opportunities for advancement are fantastic. No, they're not. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. So anyway, finally comes the day that you either quit, you retire, or you get laid off. And because of them wanting bigger profits. And so you go to start taking the money out of your 401k, right? So your 401k, think about it, all the years that you've worked and all the years that you put into that 401k doesn't even equal 1 year's pay to that CEO. With his pay, his bonuses, his stock options, the perks, all that stuff. 1 year. Think about it. Add it up. Look it up. See if I'm not right. If I'm wrong, okay. But do it. Just do it. Think about it. So you go to take your money out of your 401k, do your distributions, because that's what you're supposed to do. And they tell you, by the way, there's a fee. You're going to have to pay a fee. The company that I had, which is a well-known company, the fee was going to be $75 every single time that you take a distribution, okay? Think about that. And also, on top of that, you were going to have to pay taxes on it. Full taxes. The company donated a little bit to your 401k, and then you put in money to your 401k, but you have to pay the full amount of the taxes on that. The company doesn't have to pay nothing. They're done with you. You're gone. So that's to add insult to injury, okay? And if you wait longer, then you have to take, you're forced to take distributions on your 401k, and you're forced to pay the taxes. And so that is just my little story. I probably forgot a whole bunch of other disgusting stuff that I wanted to fill in there, but I mean, that's enough for now. I've got lots of other issues with it. And so at this point, you're retired, you're done, and you're disgusted, and your 401k isn't anywhere near, like I said, 1 year of that CEO. How is this good? How is this equal? How is it okay for you to say, but it's the interest, compound interest. Got to have that compound interest. Well, what's the CEO getting? What kind of interest is that? All right. So that is the reason that I took my 401k out all at one time. Totally disgusted with the system. Totally disgusted. And I know I'm not making compound interest. And I know that I'm not going to be having a big retirement. I paid my house off. But you know what? I feel good. I can sleep at night that I'm not supporting these people that are forcing people to live in the street or live in their car or live in a van or live with other family members, because these jackwagons can take your money, reinvest it, have all these apartment buildings, and force people to pay 3 times what a property is worth for rent, and say, oh, it's market rate. You made the damn market rate. And it was a whole community effort. It was a community effort. Everybody contributed to it. And guess what? If the bank fails, guess who gets bailed out? You lose your house, the bank gets bailed out. The bank still gets to operate. You get to be homeless. So, I'm sorry I went off on a little tangent there, but the thing is that you're contributing to this problem. And it's not going to end until you stand up and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. That I am just not going to contribute to this anymore. And I know it'll hurt, because it's hurt me. Now I don't have a 401k. I don't have a retirement fund. But you know what? I feel good that I'm not contributing to that bullshit anymore. Okay? So, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Have a good night.